You might have heard that the World Bank finances the projects and economic development of its member states. Yeah, that's 100% true. But who actually controls the World Bank, and what's the primary role of this project? To get a detailed answer to these questions, watch this video until the very end, as we're going to discuss the roles and operations of the World Bank that play a vital part in transforming the modern world. History and origin. The Bretton Woods Conference in 1944 resulted in the establishment of the World Bank. Its loans aided the reconstruction of European nations after World War II. As a result, it was established as the world's first multilateral development bank, and a bond sale was used to raise the necessary funds for it. France and other European nations were among the initial recipients of its loans. Since then, the bank has collaborated with emerging nations such as India and China on various initiatives, including rail infrastructure. The World Bank's lending practices became contentious, and a large number of nations utilized their loans to avoid defaulting on their national debt. However, that debt was often incurred as a consequence of excessive expenditure and borrowing. With or without the assistance of the World Bank, numerous nations undervalued their currencies, resulting in hyperinflation. To counteract this, the bank mandated austerity measures. Borrowing countries had to promise to reduce their expenditure and support their currencies in exchange for the loan. Unfortunately, this frequently resulted in a recession, making it impossible to repay the bank's loans promptly. Organization and operations. Being a financial institution, the World Bank cannot be compared to the traditional banks in the term's traditional meaning. It comprises 5 different institutions: the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or IBRD, the International Development Association, or IDA, the International Finance Corporation, or IFC, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, and the International Center for Settlement for Investment Disputes. Each of these organizations is owned and run as a cooperative by the nations that belong to it. The IBRD and IDA are collectively referred to as the World Bank. The United States, Japan, China, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom were the bank's 6 biggest owners, accounting for 189 stockholders. The board of governors of the bank, mostly composed of top finance or development officials from member nations, has ultimate decision power at the organization. As a result of this, the board of governors delegated some powers to the board of directors, which comprises 25 executives and the president of the World Bank Group. Presently, the United States holds 15.85% of the votes, followed by Japan, China, Germany, the UK, and France. Similarly, the top 5 shareholders and Saudi Arabia are represented by a single executive director. Using a formula, each member of the bank contributes 2% of its membership in gold or US dollars and 18% of its subscription in its own country's local currency. In addition, members contribute 20% of the bank's capital, with the remaining 80% being callable by the bank that is to be paid in the event of a default. This guarantee enables the bank to obtain money for lending purposes on international capital markets via its bonds secured by the contract. However, in the case of the IDA, its revenues are primarily derived from voluntary donor contributions made via periodic replenishments, which are typically made every 3 years. Historically, additional contributions have been given by the IBRD and the IFC from the repayment of previous IDA loans. The IBRD was created in 1944 as the World Bank's charter institution. It works with middle-income and credit-worthy low-income countries to combat poverty via loans, assurances, and other services. Projects are located worldwide and range from modernizing health systems in Belarus to lowering air pollution in Colombia to producing solar energy in Pakistan. The IDA is a non-profit organization and was created in 1960 as a supplement to the IBRD to encourage broad-based development activities in the world's poorest nations by providing interest-free financing and grants. It now runs initiatives in 69 countries, 37 of them in Africa, emphasizing education, health, and environmentally friendly practices. If you're loving this video, then make sure to subscribe and leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," and we will personally reply to your comment. World Bank purpose and function. The World Bank is an international corporation that assists developing nations in their efforts to alleviate poverty. The organization's initial purpose is to end severe poverty, and they're on the way to eliminating this phenomenon as soon as possible. By 2030, the organization intends no more than 3% of the population of the world to be living on less than $1.90 a day. The second purpose of the organization is to promote shared prosperity. It aspires to raise the earnings of the poorest 40% of the population in each member country. More than 12,000 projects have been financed by the World Bank since its establishment in 1947. Specifically, it aims to bridge the economic barrier between poor and affluent nations. It does this by converting rich country resources into poor country growth and aspires to achieve sustained poverty reduction over the long run. To achieve this goal, the bank focuses on several areas, including overcoming poverty by stimulating growth, assisting countries recovering from war, providing a customized solution to help middle-income countries remain out of poverty, encouraging governments to prevent climate change, collaborating with partners to put an end to AIDS, managing international financial crises, and promoting open trade. Who owns the World Bank? It's not owned by any single authority, as it is a multidisciplined organization run by a group of people from different countries. In a presidential nomination ceremony held on February 6, 2019, President Donald Trump nominated David Malpass to be the next president of the World Bank. He served as Undersecretary of the Treasury Department for International Affairs for the United States. Malpass had questioned bank lending to China, but he required the backing of China and Japan, who are the world's second and third largest shareholders in the World Bank. On April 9, 2019, he was given his formal approval. From 2012 until 2019, Jim Yong Kim, MD, PhD, served as the organization's president. To join Global Infrastructure Partners, a private equity firm, he resigned from his position on February 1, 2019, 3 years before his tenure was set to expire. How does the World Bank operate? The bank seeks to achieve its objectives by making long-term loans and, in the case of the IDA, grants to governments to finance development projects, and structural reforms in areas such as education, health, public administration, infrastructure, financial and private sector development, agricultural, environment, technical assistance, and natural resource management. The World Bank Group may also be considered a supplier of a variety of goods and services to governments, and in the case of the IFC, private sector entities. In 2014, the bank adopted 2 objectives for gauging performance and fostering long-term economic development. The World Bank also positions itself as a solutions bank, combining its lending power with expertise and experience in global development. It does this via research papers, policy recommendations, and technical help. It is well known for its prominent yearly flagship publication, the World Growth Report, which offers research and guidance on a particular facet of economic development. The bank also publishes several journals that track and rate its member nations' policies, such as the Doing Business Report, Women Business, Law, and the Human Capital Index. In addition, it carries out a variety of research and analyses on global economic trends, development policy data, and effect assessment. The so-called trust funds are a crucial source of development money and collaboration inside the bank. These are intended to supplement the IDA and IBRD by assisting global public goods, fragile and conflict-affected nations, disaster prevention and relief, global collaborations, knowledge, and innovation. As of the end of the financial year of 2019, the amount of the World Bank Group funds held in trust was anticipated to be $12.1 billion, of which more than $11 billion was distributed to IDA and blend nations, which are IDA eligible based on per capita income levels and are also creditworthy for certain IBRD borrowing. In addition, there are IFC trust funds and financial intermediary funds, or FIFs. Through consulting services and concessional loans, IFC trust funds strive to generate market possibilities, primarily through attracting private investment, also known as blended finance. Through FIFs, the bank conducts significant global or regional initiatives designed in collaboration with other organizations, such as multilateral development banks and UN agencies. FIFs offer large-scale financing for board-coordinated activities that are often theme-focused and targeted at delivering global public objectives. Following the global debt crisis in the early 1980s, the bank established structural adjustment loans, or SAPs, to finance nations facing balance of payments concerns while stabilization measures were implemented. These loans were made available to countries to fund social, structural, and sectoral reforms, establishing national financial and judicial institutions. The World Bank placed restrictions on its loans with the claimed goal of ensuring that the country's economy is organized to repay debts. However, SAPs have long been chastised for having a harmful influence on developing nations, including growing reliance on inequitable foreign commerce and banking institutions. While the bank no longer works with SAPs, this sort of lending is still practiced today via development policy finance, in which the bank provides borrowers with financing in the form of loans, grants, and credits. And if you found this video useful, then you'll love these. And be sure to like this video to let the YouTube algorithm know you'd like to see more videos like this one.